And welcome back. Now, we've been talking a lot about Nelson Mandela, and his love for children is, of course, legendary. Now, Grandad Mandela is a children's book written by his great-grandchildren, Zazi and Ziwelene, who are aged 6 and 8. And in the book, they ask their grandmother, Madiba's daughter, Zindzi, 15 questions about the man they remember as their grandfather, but whose name, Mandela, everybody in the world knows. And the book is illustrated by Sean Qualls, who is an award-winning New York-based children's book illustrator. But to tell us more about this book, and I'm so excited about this, I'm joined in studio by the little authors themselves. Zazi and Ziwe, good morning, and thanks for coming through. And they are, of course, joined by their mother, Lindo Mandela. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Are you excited to be here?
Yes.
So tell us about your book, because it's so exciting.
We wrote a book called Grandad Mandela, and we wrote it with our great-grandmother, Zindzi. Yeah, Zindzi Mandela.
Oh, so I want to know, so you guys are fairly young, so you probably don't remember Grandad Mandela that much, but you obviously have heard a lot about them, Ziwe?
Yes.
So what did you first hear?
First thing when I met him, I was very little, and I remember there was a picture of him and me. He was holding me, and I was wearing a blue outfit or something, and then I think I was like maybe like grabbing onto his face.
Oh, so sweet. And then you wanted to know more about him when you saw that picture. And who did you ask?
Our mom and dad, we would ask them, but they suggested we would ask our great-grandmother Zindzi, Grandma Zindzi, or our great-great-grandmother Winnie Mandela.
Oh, so tell me, what was it like? What was the first question you asked your grandmother?
I asked her, where was he born and where he grew up.
And you remember what she told you?
Pardon?
Do you remember what she told you?
Yes. She said he was born in, I can't remember, but he grew up in Kunu.
Ah, he was born in Umvezo, but I'm impressed. So yeah, so that was quite interesting. And from there, you had more questions for her?
Yes.
So what else did you want to know about Grandad?
We asked what did he do in prison, and what he did when he got out, and what happened, how the apartheid happened.
Big words now. So we're going to get to those big words in just a second. But how did you feel, Ziwe, when your grandmother was telling you about, your great-grandfather being in prison? How did that make you feel?
It was making me feel very sad, and I was interested because I thought there were people, normal police that won't invading the black people's space, because I was very interested, because I did not get it, because if they were those police, then they would probably just help.
That's interesting. So what you think the police should do, they were not doing. So yeah, Zazi, you mentioned a big word, apartheid. Did your grandmother explain to you what that was?
Yes.
How did you understand it?
How I understand it was apartheid separates black people and white people, and says that white people are better, and that makes them not kind to each other.
And how did your granddad, feel about that?
I feel like he didn't really like it because it wasn't nice, and he wanted to be friends with everyone. And if you were friends with everyone, you could make the world a better place.
And that's what he did.
Yes.
And Ziwe, tell me, Big Mommy, what do you remember about Big Mommy?
I remember that she would tell us stories, and whatever we would want to know, she would tell us. And sometimes, if you asked, can you buy some sweets, she would buy us some sweets. And every time when we were at Soweto, then every time before me and her leave, we buy toys.
Oh, so she spoiled you.
No,
Yeah.
she didn't.
Yes, she did.
And
She did.
no, she did. And also she'd give us money for the plane in case our ears get blocked.
Oh, Zazi, you say she did spoil you. And you
didn't.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, but sometimes I wanted to take a break because sometimes if she spoils us a lot, then the money gets shorter.
Oh, her money.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet and so thoughtful of you. Okay, I'll tell you what. The two of you, you can each find a passage that you want to read to me from the book while I just speak to Mommy very briefly here. So these 15 questions turned into a book. So how did that idea develop?
That idea developed purely because they were very curious to know and understand. I mean, there's fragmented pieces of history surrounding them everywhere, and we thought it's best to sort of consolidate this into a book, because I think that hopefully, can I borrow this book, please? Because I want to make a point. Because I think with any other home, particularly with the history of South Africa, it becomes very difficult to articulate certain things because of its harshness and brutality, and we would find it particularly awkward. And we had the privilege of having a direct line to their grandmother and their great-grandmother so that they could contextualize it. I mean, they probably had their whole lives to practice in terms of how to deliver these sort of messages to young people. And so we took advantage of that, and we thought, let's put this together in a book. And what's nice about a children's picture book is that there's a lot of, there's just very few words, but there's a lot of illustration. And I think in between those words that each and every family can then put in their own history in terms of how they experienced apartheid and how it affected their own family units. And so it very quickly became a universal story, I think, that could live in each and every home, despite of your race, because I think if you are at least a citizen of the world, then you have been touched by some level of injustice as we know it.
Absolutely. So it's a reader come workbook, as it were, and
yes.
People can actually inscribe whatever they want to on it.
I think so. I think what it is, and I think it's not necessarily how we package the book, but I think that's precisely the advantage of a children's book, right? Because you read a bedtime story to your child, and there's obviously questions that are directed more at you as the parent or as the reader that you must address, but using the book as a conduit to address those very universal matters.
And of course, this is the legacy. This is the real Madiba legacy. This is the next generation. What sort of pressure does that put on you as a parent?
I think as a parent, it makes me very conscientious. I'm not only looking at a statesman, but I'm also looking more importantly around my children's own identity. And that for me is more important than anything, because they are entities unto themselves. And like I said, I wish that they want to pursue their own lives with full autonomy and understanding what their basic rights are. And that for me is really the pressure, that they're not necessarily squandered, and they're not muted under the greatness and heroism of their great-grandparents, and that they too find their own voice and their own space in life to articulate themselves.
And Grandma Zindzi, how did she feel, and having to respond to what are really difficult questions? And, I read through the book, and it really takes a deft touch to explain these very difficult concepts to children.
I think my mother-in-law's, has a very gentle way about her, and she gets along very well with young people, particularly this particular generation. And I think she's always wanted to write a children's book based on the characteristics of her own grandchildren. And so when this opportunity came about, it informed her that particular inclination was spot on, but also that she could use her voice in order to articulate her own painful history, because all of these events that unfold in this book, you must remember, she was also a child, and I think that it only takes that level of experience to probably best articulate what it felt like, and all of those experiences in the most authentic way, and not appropriating anyone else's voice, to make that illustration or to make that point.
Absolutely. Ziwe, as Mommy was saying there, Grandma Zindzi, when she spoke, and it's in the book, where she talks about when she was a little girl and she couldn't go to school because the police would come and they would chase her and her sister out of school. How did you feel about that?
It was very sad and not really fair for kids, because who would do that to kids? Because the easy thing is to just say sorry for the mistakes in case they just want to keep on making a bigger problem.
And now, Zazi, you found a space in the book, something you want to read to us? So please go ahead, dear.
Why did Grandad go to jail? Asked Zazi. He went to jail because he was fighting against apartheid. Apartheid was a law in South Africa that separated black people and white people, and that said white people were better. Grandad was fighting for us all to be equal. Like we say, I love you lots like jelly tots. We are different colors, but we all taste the same. Said Zazi. That's what Grandad Mandela was fighting for.
Oh, lovely. And of course, and I love that bit as well, because if you read through the book, what you will find is that it's the question by one of the children, and then Grandmother Zindzi's response to them, and where she explains, I love you. When we say I love you lots like jelly tots, it means, we all different, we all have different colors and that, but in the end, we all jelly tots. We all taste like jelly tots. And that's how they've gone about, explaining these very difficult concepts to the young Mandela grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So, Ziwe?
Yes.
You found your space, and Mommy can help you.
Yeah. Do you know what Ubuntu means? Do you want to read there? Okay. Go ahead.
Do you know
what Ubuntu means?
What Ubuntu means?
She asked.
I think I used to, said Zazi. It mean I am because we all are, said Grandma Zindzi.
That's good. Okay, so Ubuntu also. And so when you think of Ubuntu today, from what Grandma Zindzi explained to you, how would you explain to your friends in school?
Since I'll first say the English version, because most of my friends that I all of my friends in my class normally just don't really know much of Xhosa. Well, I'm mostly the only one. While they take Xhosa lessons, and I would explain I would say, do you know what I am? Because we are means. Then if they say what does it mean, then I'll say it's like saying I am good because we all are good, and that's what Ubuntu means.
Ah, spot on. So just a final question to both of you and to Mommy. So when people talk about your granddad, how would you want them to remember him?
I want them to how to remember him. It's so they can do good stuff, be kind to one another, and treat people the way they want to be treated.
Ziwe?
I want them to remember him as a man that would stood up for his country, and no matter what people do to make his people suffer, he'll still keep on fighting back.
Mommy? Lindo?
I think that they should remember President Mandela as, in fact, I would want people to be a bit more compassionate when they appropriate the memory of President Mandela, and remember that he was a family man who emanated from a particular part of the world that shaped his ideals and values, and that's all the way in the Eastern Cape, in Mvezo and Gonu, and that we all have that innate ability, regardless of where we come from, to rise above all circumstances, to be the very best of who we can be. And this is all based on the fact that we treasure certain ideals, and they're all centered around family. And I think that we're very quick to forget that this person is a family man, and I think that people need to spare a thought for that part of his life that I think sort of dimmed under the shadow of all his other great works.
Well, thank you so much to all of you for coming through and talking to us about your book, Grandad Mandela, and it's all about the Mandela legacy. And thank you to my guests this morning, Zazi and Ziwelene, ages 6 and 8, and they are of course the great grandchildren of Tata Madiba and Mama Winnie Mandela, and they were joined by their mother Lindo Mandela. And